There is one sign on this list that almost no other video about female psychology ever talks about, and it is usually the clearest one of all. Most channels stop at 3 signs. They tell you about proximity, they tell you about memory, maybe they tell you about jealousy, and then the video ends. But there is a 4th sign, a quieter one that shows up after a woman has already made her decision about you, and if you know what it looks like, you will never miss it again. Stay until the end, because that 4th sign changes how you read almost every woman in your life. Somewhere in your daily world right now, there could be a woman who has already decided she likes you. Not maybe, not possibly, already decided. And here is the uncomfortable part. She may have decided this weeks ago, long before you ever asked yourself whether she was interested. Most men think attraction starts with the approach, with the text message, with the moment he finally says something. But in most real cases, the story already started. And it started in her mind quietly without asking his permission. She has been watching how you talk to people. She has been watching what you do when things get stressful. She has been noticing whether you are steady or whether you fold under pressure. None of this feels dramatic to her. It feels automatic. And while it is happening, she is running something psychologists call a relationship simulation, basically previewing in her head what it might feel like to actually be with you, all before a single romantic word has been said out loud. This is exactly why so many men look back years later and realize a woman they knew was into them the whole time. The signals were never hidden. They just did not look like what he was taught to expect. So today we are breaking down 4 signs in order from the easiest to miss to the one almost nobody talks about. If you have ever wondered whether someone you know sees you differently than she lets on, sign 4 is going to hit hard. Let's start with sign 1. Sign 1 is proximity that does not make logical sense. Watch how a woman moves through a shared space when you are around. Human beings are wired to conserve effort. We take the shortest route, the easiest chair, the path of least resistance, unless something makes the extra effort worth it. So when a woman keeps ending up near you, sitting in the seat closer to you instead of the empty one across the room, walking past your desk on a route that is not actually faster, joining a conversation she has no real reason to join, that is not random. Dr. Monica Moore, a researcher who spent years filming courtship behavior in public spaces, documented something fascinating. Women signal interest non-verbally through positioning and glancing, far more often and far earlier than most men ever notice, and most men never register it as a signal at all. She is not necessarily doing this on purpose. Her brain is doing it for her. Being near you feels rewarding, so her body keeps finding reasons to be near you, and her mind supplies a perfectly logical excuse afterward. The coffee machine, the shortcut, the friend she was already talking to. Here's a question for you while you're watching this. Can you think of someone in your life right now whose presence around you never quite added up? Drop it in the comments. I want to see how many of you already have someone in mind. Sign 2 is harder to fake because it requires something proximity does not. It requires her brain to have quietly filed you away as important. Every day, your mind is bombarded with information, and almost all of it disappears within minutes because your brain filters out anything it decides is not worth keeping. That is not a flaw. That is how memory survives. So when a woman remembers something small you mentioned once in passing, weeks ago, and brings it up unprompted, that is not politeness. That is data. Helen Fisher, one of the most cited researchers in the science of romantic attraction, has shown that early-stage interest activates the brain's attention and reward systems together, which means the person you're drawn to does not just get noticed, they get remembered in far more detail than anyone else around you. If you mentioned a doctor's appointment once, offhand, in the middle of an unrelated conversation, and she asks how it went a week later, pause on that. Her brain did not have to save that detail. It chose to. And if this video is helping you see patterns you never noticed before, hit subscribe now because sign 4 later in this video is going to reframe almost every interaction you've had with her. Sign 3 shows up when someone else enters the picture. This is where it gets interesting because the reaction is almost never loud. It is small, a shift in posture, a slightly sharper tone, a step just a little bit closer to you without her realizing she moved. Maybe a coworker laughs a little too easily at your joke, or a woman you know hugs you when she arrives, and suddenly the woman who was relaxed a second ago becomes noticeably more present in the conversation. She contributes more. She asks a casual-sounding question like, "How do you know her?" that is doing a lot more work than it sounds like on the surface. David Buss, whose research on mate competition is some of the most referenced in the field, has documented this exact pattern across cultures, what researchers sometimes call attention guarding. When someone has already placed emotional value on you, their brain treats your attention as something worth protecting, and it reacts to potential competition automatically, often before she is even consciously aware she is doing it. If you have ever seen someone go from relaxed to suddenly locked in the moment a rival showed up, and then relax again just as fast once the rival left, that was not random mood swinging. That was her brain defending something it already decided mattered. Now here is sign 4, the one almost nobody covers and the one that ties everything else together. Watch for the moment she starts asking your opinion on things that have absolutely nothing to do with you. Not relationship things, ordinary things, which job offer she should take, whether a paint color looks right, whether an outfit works for an interview, whether she's overreacting to something a friend said. On the surface, this looks like nothing. Maybe even like she just values your judgment as a friend. But psychologically, this is one of the strongest signals there is, because human beings do not go out of their way to seek validation from people whose opinion they do not already weigh more heavily than everyone else's. Esther Perel, whose work focuses heavily on how people build emotional intimacy, has pointed out that seeking someone's perspective on unrelated life decisions is one of the clearest ways people quietly test emotional closeness long before they are ready to admit that closeness exists. And Arthur Aaron's research on relationship building, the same research behind the well-known 36 Questions study, found that this kind of information sharing and opinion seeking is one of the fastest accelerators of emotional bonding that exists between two people. So when a woman starts routing her decisions through you, decisions she is fully capable of making on her own, she is not doing it because she is indecisive. She is doing it because some part of her already sees you as someone whose opinion of her matters. That is the loop I opened this video with. That is the sign almost nobody talks about, and once you notice it, you cannot unsee it. So let's bring this back together. Proximity that does not logically add up. Memory for details she had no reason to keep. A protective shift in attention the moment competition appears. And underneath all of it, the quiet habit of seeking your opinion on things that have nothing to do with you. Individually, any one of these could be a coincidence. Together, they are not a coincidence, they are a pattern. And patterns do not lie the way single moments can. If you recognize someone in your life while watching this, someone whose proximity, memory, reactions, or questions suddenly make a lot more sense now, tell me about her in the comments. I read every single one. And if you want more breakdowns like this, the kind that actually explain the psychology instead of just repeating dating advice you've already heard 100 times, subscribe and turn on notifications because next week we're covering the signs that mean the opposite. The signals that tell you she has already emotionally checked out, and most men miss those just as badly as they miss this. Share this with a friend who needs to hear it, and I will see you in the next one.